School. How you doing? Yay! Hey, my name is Kelly, and I hang out with the middle school. And some of you I've known since 6th grade. Some of you, it's your first time. I've never met you before. But Maddie let me come and speak tonight, and I'm really, really excited. So thanks so much, Maddie. I appreciate that. So we're in our third week of our series, Face Swap. And Matt B. started us off 2 weeks ago. And he talked about this idea that you and I need to go through kind of an identity correction because we seem to live in this constant kind of pull back and forth of an identity crisis. Okay? And so that's how this idea of a face swap came about. We have to swap some things so that we can begin to see ourselves the way that Jesus sees us and the way that he wants us to live. And he spoke of our series verse in James 1. It's going to come up on the screen there. And it says this. It says, but don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you're only fooling yourselves. For if you listen to the word and you don't obey, it's kind of like glancing at your face in a mirror. You see yourself, you walk away, and you forget what you look like. But if you look carefully into the perfect law that sets you free, and if you do what it says and don't forget what you heard, then God will bless you for doing it. And that's our series verse, and that's what we want for your life. So I have a question for you. How many of you, when you were a kid, or maybe right now, even in high school, how many of you when you were a kid would admit that you liked to play pretend every now and then? I liked to play pretend. Thank you. Some of you are so proud of it. I love that. I liked to play pretend. So here's what I'm going to need for you to do with me just for a couple of minutes. I'm going to need for you to play pretend with me just for a second, okay? So hey, I'm used to talking with middle school students, so we're going to pretend just for a minute. And so what I want you to do is, how many of you have seen any of the Snow White movies, whether it's the cartoon, the original one, or the Snow White and the Huntsman, any of that, okay? So you know, especially the scene where the evil queen, right, she's talking to the mirror, and she's coming up to the mirror, and she's like, mirror, mirror on the wall. And she wants to know all this stuff from the mirror, and it talks to her. So here's where I want you to pretend. I want you to pretend that where you are right now in your life, your circumstances, your age, and all that stuff about you, I want you to pretend like you're going up to a mirror, and you're going to ask it some questions, kind of like the evil queen did to the mirror in the movie. And you're going to ask this mirror this question. You're going to say, mirror, mirror on the wall. You're going to ask it, what is my life going to look like when it's all said and done? What's my life going to look like when it's all said and done? You ask in the mirror. Your response that you get back from the mirror is this. Your life, when it's all said and done, is going to end up being a wasted life. Not exactly what you want to hear, right? That would kind of get your attention. That would get my attention. You would go, wait a minute, maybe you misheard my question. You want to ask it again. And then the mirror says, wait, but I know the secret of how that's not going to happen. Okay, now you're talking my language. Now we're good here. How many of you would want to know the secret to that question? I would want to know the secret. And even those that you did not raise your hand, you want to know the secret. Because there's not one person in this room that wants to get to the end of your life and know that it will have meant for nothing. And know that it will have been wasted. There's no person that wants that. So here's the thing tonight. God's word, like we just read in James chapter 1, God's word speaks much louder and much more specific than any mirror ever could. And tonight, we're going to look into that mirror because in the word is where that secret is found of how your life, whether you're 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, when it's all said and done, your life will have meant something and it will have been purposeful. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in and we're going to see that answer in this story in Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 28. It's a story maybe that you've heard or you're familiar with, and maybe for some of you, maybe you haven't. That's okay. I'm going to read along. I'm going to read out loud. And so just read along with me, and then we're going to go through it, okay? And so it says this. Then the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with her sons. So you've got this mom coming with her sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. "What is your request?" he asked. Well, she replied, "In your kingdom, please let my 2 sons sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and one on your left." But Jesus answered by saying to them, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering that I'm about to drink?" He knows he's getting ready to go to the cross. "Oh, yes, yes," they replied, "we are able." Well, Jesus told them, "You will indeed drink from my bitter cup, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or who will sit on my left. The Father has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen." Now, when the 10 other disciples heard and they came along, they heard what James and John had asked. They were indignant, okay? They were ticked off. But Jesus called them together and he said, "All right, guys." He said that you know the rulers in this world, they lord it over their people, okay? And the officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. He's expecting that there. For whoever wants to be a leader among you, whoever wants to live a life of meaning, whoever wants to live a life of influence, which I would think all of us in here probably do, whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man, Jesus, came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. And there's the secret. There it is in verse 26. Because the first week we challenged you and we called you to be friend bringers. Many of you did that. Second week, we challenged you to be Bible believers. Many of you might say that you do believe that. And this week, the third thing that we're going to challenge you, the secret of living a life of meaning and purpose when it's all said and done, we're going to challenge you to be a servant leader. Because that's exactly what Jesus says to his disciples, and that's exactly what he says to you if you say that you follow him. And that's probably not what you thought that I was going to say. Maybe you thought I was going to say, you pray for 30 minutes every day, or you do this, or you do that. Maybe some of those things are involved. But the truth is this: a selfish life is a wasted life. I don't care how you package it. I don't care how pretty it looks. I don't care how many scholarships you have. I don't care how great your grades are. I don't care what college you go to. At the end of the day, a selfish life that is meant for you and you alone is a wasted life. And you will have wasted your life. It's pretty serious, kind of. And in God's world, those that claim that they follow Christ, he says that a life of meaning and purpose is found really when you lead through serving. But let's jump back. Let's go back to this story just for a second, because maybe for some of you, this is the first time that you heard it. And so I kind of want to help you out. I want to help you understand it just for a second, because you have these guys, James and John, and they're going up to Jesus. And here's what I believed, just from reading this story. I really don't believe they were going up to him because they wanted to make some statement or they wanted to tell Jesus what they were or were not going to do. I really think James and John, like us, they really wanted to live a life of meaning and purpose. I think they were going up to them with their mom, which I think is kind of funny. Which, by the way, seniors, don't do that. Like, if you want to get a job, don't take your mama with you. Okay, that's just a mental note. That's free for you tonight. Okay, so they take their mom up there with them, and I think they really just wanted to have something. They wanted their life to count for something. And what they had seen around them in their culture, what they had seen around them in maybe their governors, maybe even in the church leadership, the things that they had seen, they were simply just trying to follow what they had seen. And that's the way that they thought to gain success and purpose, was by position. So it only makes sense that they want to come up to Jesus and go, hey, can I be on your right? Hey, can I be on your left? Because they thought that a life of purpose and meaning had everything to do with your position and your status. Because maybe that's what they had seen in their culture. And Jesus kind of corrected them. He gave them an identity correction there in that teaching moment. And he said, no. I know that's what you've seen. But among you, it better be different. That's the call of a follower of Jesus. And so tonight, though, for you and us, I kind of think that today in our leadership culture, I kind of think unfortunately, maybe even in the church culture, I hate to say that, but it's true, I kind of think it's kind of the same way for us. I think we see a lot of those things in the very same way. Because it's astounding to me that you as a generation, that you as teenagers and students are sitting back and you're watching this political process. You're watching these elections and you're watching this debate. And I'll be honest with you, I've sat through several elections. I'm not going to tell you how many. But I've been through many, and I have never seen one that is more divisive, more nasty, more rude, and hateful. And these are the people that want to lead our country. And here's my thought about that. My thought about that is that, unfortunately, what you and I see at minimal, at very least, we have some out there, praise the Lord, I hope God calls more influence and leadership, but we see very few servant leaders. You were seeing some, they're just not in the process right now, but we see very few servant leaders. And instead, we see many of the officials, we see many of the governors, we see many people who, like in Jesus' day, they want to lord it over. They want to flaunt their authority. They want to flaunt their power and their control. And Jesus says, no, that's not a life of significance and meaning when it's all said and done. But let's not point the fingers too quickly, right? Let's not point the finger at everybody else. Let's look in the mirror. That's what you came here to do tonight. Let's turn our finger around and let's point it at ourselves and let's look at ourselves, because there are some barriers that our friends in this story, the candidates and the leadership and the politicians, the governors, whoever you see today, there are the same barriers they struggled with. The same barriers they struggle with are the very same barriers that you and I can struggle with too. We're no different. You and I are no different. So here's what I want to do. You're going to walk out tonight, and you're going to hear 3 barriers that can get in the way and that can make us stumble in living a life as a servant leader, which ultimately, remember, is a life of meaning and purpose, because that's what you want. You don't want a wasted life. And in order to not get a wasted life, Jesus says you must lead through serving others. But there's 3 barriers that I see in this text and that I see even in my own life I struggle with, and that we see in this world today, and that's what I want you to hear tonight. And that first barrier that I see is the barrier of pride. The barrier of pride. I mean, we all struggle with it. Just nice, plain old, me thinking I'm better and I deserve more than you, pride. And although you may not say it, it may be what you think. But in the end, what you think is going to be how you live. So you might want to adjust the way that you think. So what is this idea of pride? What does that look like, though? Where do I see this reflected mostly in y'all's generation? Okay, so I'm teaching to you tonight, so I don't want you to hear that I'm coming across that we don't ever struggle with it as adults. But I do want to pinpoint and be specific about your generation that I'm seeing a little bit. Because I'm seeing this idea of pride be known as more. And I'm seeing this with the idea of excuses. Because I'm seeing that it's become more and more easy for us to be excuse makers rather than difference makers. That's what I'm seeing in this generation. You don't have to be that way, but I'm seeing excuse makers more than difference makers, and that is an issue of pride. Because what that says is that I many times don't see the opportunities that I'm stepping into because I'm so stuck on myself. Or because I got all the excuses in the world of why I can't help you. My schedule, my thing, my this, my thoughts, my role, me. And I've become an excuse maker. So be careful in this student ministry, in your homes, in your organizations that you're involved in your schools, on your teams. Are you going to be filled with pride and be an excuse maker, or are you going to be a difference maker? Because that can be a barrier. So what do you do with your pride? We talked about swapping, so let's bring that back in here for a second. Where do you swap? If you want to deal with this issue of pride, you must swap your haughtiness, which is just another word for pride, your haughtiness for humility. That's where the swap needs to come in. Haughtiness for humility. Proverbs 16:18 says, Pride goes before destruction. You don't want that in your life. And haughtiness before a fall. Basically, he's saying, you better watch out, because if you're living in this way, there's going to be destruction. The Bible sometimes really lays it out pretty simple and easy for us. You swap haughtiness for humility. Now, let me tell you really quick a definition of humility. If you've never heard one before, or even if you have, I'm going to tell you again. Maybe you can write it down, you can tweet it, whatever, I don't care. Humility, though, you need to know what that is. Humility is not thinking less about yourself. It's not just being a self-hater and talking about, oh, I'm so horrible, I'm so this and that, and you're just kind of hating on yourself in disguise of humility. It's really not humility. Humility is not thinking less about yourself. It's thinking about yourself less, okay? So my eyes are not so focused on just me. I'm focused on you. Therefore, I'm not going to be as willing to make excuses, because I'm focused on you and I'm not focused on myself. I'm going to be willing to step into an opportunity so that I can help, so that I can lead, so that I can make a difference. Pride. The second barrier to being a servant leader that you and we have to kind of struggle with is this idea of power. The idea of wanting control. Wanting control and being willing to do whatever it takes to have that control. Again, that's what the leadership was doing it. Remember how Jesus said they were lording it over their people? They were wanting to be in control over them. And be careful, that trickles into us too. Be careful, because what that can look like is that we're not willing to do the things that require us to follow, because we want to be in control. We want to be in control of our team. We want to be in control. We want to be captain. We want to be the one in our classroom that gets to call the shots. We want to be in our friend group that gets to tell everybody else what to do, right? And because the struggle with leadership in that is that our mantra becomes a lot like Burger King, right? We want it our way. We want it our way, because my way is the best way, and the best way is the right way, and the right way is what's going to get done. But it's just like, no. Be careful that you don't live a life as a leader of control and wanting to lord it over people and wanting to have control. So what do you do with power? What's the swap that you have to make? You have to swap the idea of the control for power for release. And the picture that I get, and I'm gonna get you to do it with me in just a second, all right? The picture that I get is a clenched fist. Everybody, get your fists. Get your fists out, okay? Just do it with me. Middle school did it. Y'all can do it. You can, I promise. I think about a clenched fist, because when we live like a leader, and we're so focused on holding on to what we want, we're so focused on holding on to our thoughts and our opinions and our positions and our everything. And what you and I have to do is we have to be willing to swap that for, you ready? Follow me, for release and open it. Thanks, Maddie. We have to be willing to release. Guys, we have to be willing. What you can do with free hands is amazing. You have to be willing to release control. You have to be willing to allow other people to join you. You have to be willing to invite others in. The process. God wants to use everybody, and a servant leader brings others with them. You can't do that if you're holding on to yourself and if you're holding on to control. Power. And the third and final thing tonight that you and I have to struggle with if we want to live a life as a servant leader, which will ultimately lead a life of purpose, is popularity. Now, this is a big one. Popularity, right? Maddie says, come on. The desire to just be liked, the desire to want people to like you at any cost. Here's the thing. Everybody wants people to like you. Everybody likes you, Maddie. Don't worry, it's okay. Everybody wants to be liked, and that's not wrong. The problem is that when your motive as a leader, you're wanting to do whatever it takes to be liked. That's the problem, at any cost. At any cost. The Apostle Paul, he's this guy in the New Testament. He said this, he addressed this issue actually in Galatians 1:10. And he said this, it's going to come on the screen. It says, do you think I speak this strongly in order to manipulate crowds? He's talking to a church there. Or curry favor with God, that just means to gain favor. Or get popular applause. If my goal was popularity, I wouldn't bother being a Christ slave. What he's saying is, you got to choose one way or you got to choose the other. If my goal is to lead and to do what everybody else wants me to do, then why bother following Christ? Because there's no baseline. And many of you are in your schools, and by the way, in high school, you have an opportunity for position. You have an opportunity to lead and to influence. You have a choice. You can do what everybody else wants to do. Some of you, you're presidents of student councils in here. You're this, you're that, and all that stuff. Are you going to do what everybody else wants you to do? Are you going to be like Paul and struggle with this idea of popularity? Are you going to do what they want you to do, or are you going to lead and follow Christ? Because you can't do both. You do one or the other. Popularity. The desire to want to do whatever it takes at any cost. And if that's your motive as a leader, that's not going to get you the life that you want. That's not going to get you the life that you want. Because you're going to find yourself willing to do and to say what everybody else wants you to say. And in the process, you're going to lose yourself. You don't even know who you are, right? Because I'm going to be willing to do whatever you say. Whatever you think is going to be my answer. Therefore, I lose who Jesus made me to be. And I don't even know who Jesus made me to be because I'm more concerned about what you think about me. And in the end, that's a waste. It's a wasted life. And that's not what we want for you. So what do? What do you swap? What do you swap for popularity? You swap popularity for obscurity. You swap popularity for obscurity. And what that means is you swap the known for the unknown. You're willing to back up and let someone else have the spotlight. You're willing to not have to be the one out front all the time. You're willing to do the menial things that no one gets credit for. You're willing to have the desire for that. It doesn't mean that you will never have an upfront opportunity. Let me be clear on that. It's not wrong. Someone's got to lead from the stage. Someone's got to sing a song. Someone's got to speak. But if that's our motive, shame on us. If that's why we're doing it, then that's our problem. But are you willing? Are you willing to not be known? Are you willing to do that? And when I think about, just before I end, I want to give you just an example of who I think about. Because when I think about a servant leader, particularly those of you that you call this your church home, when I think about a servant leader, I think about a guy that I work with. I don't necessarily see him every day, but we kind of work at the same place every day. But I think about your pastor. I think about Pastor Tony. Because if there was ever a guy that I'm sure struggles with pride, you wouldn't know it because he leads with humility. And he's got power, by the way. He's got control. He's got a church of 3,000 or 4,000. He's got a lot to do. But you would never know it because he releases it. And yeah, he's popular. People know him. People know who he is. But he's willing to back away. As a matter of fact, every time, the thing I love about him the most is that when we were at our birthday things once every couple months, he's not at the front, high-fiving everybody, wanting to be known. Woo, I'm Pastor Tony, give me a birthday present, That's not where you find him. You know where you find him? You find him sitting at the table in the corner, sitting with men and women that you would never know their name because they don't get recognized. And Pastor Tony leads as he serves them, as he gets to know them. And he doesn't care who knows because that's who he is. So if you want to see a visual example of someone who isn't perfect by any means, but who is consistent, then just follow and look and trust the lifestyle of your pastor that's here. Because I think he's a good one to learn from. So as we kind of wrap this thing up, we're going to kind of go into a time of response. We're going to have a couple songs that the guys are going to come up and do. I want you to go ahead and to stand up for me just for a second. I want you to stand up for me. Because tonight, some of you, I don't know where you find yourself. We have a lot of influence in this room. That's what I do know. We have a lot of people that could have a great opportunity to be difference makers. Great opportunity. But the question is, are you? Are you a servant leader? Are you willing to work through that and struggle through that? Because it's not easy. And it's not going to always get you the popular vote, by the way. But it is what Jesus calls you to if you want to live a life of meaning and purpose. So to end, I want to read this quote, and I want you to think about it if this characterizes you. Some of you don't want this to characterize you, and that's your opinion. That's your choice, okay? That's your choice. But some of you do. So think through this. I'm going to read this quote, and then I'm going to invite you to, if you, during these songs, if you want to come talk to Maddie, if you want to come talk to Matt or whoever, if you just want to pray and say, and some of you need to say, God, I'm sorry, I've been so prideful. That's how I've been leading. Or I've been so consumed with what everybody else thinks that I've lost myself. That's not going to get me a life of meaning and purpose. Here's the quote, though. It says, the most likely candidate for leadership is the person who submits his life to God humbly, who puts the needs of others before his own needs, and who has a genuine desire to serve. And so my question for you tonight is, are you willing to do that? And I hope the answer is yes. So let me pray for you.